All right, so let's understand, like try to kind of correlate between the assembly and the top level, like a program if it is written in C. So what we are doing here is using a global variable called integer var a. Okay, and then in this program, main program, we are doing enter an integer, we scan for that in that variable a, then we call some function called print underscore gva. Okay, print global variable a, and then we are printing control is back to the main. Okay, so in terms of assembly, what happens is this, maybe like something like include of the macros will be used, that's not an important, we'll be using macros throughout. And then let's say I define toString, ASCII with ASCII, enter an integer, and also control back to main. And then we are doing dot text, we are assuming global as the main, and then print string message 1 and read integer on the T0. So both of these we have done, these macros, right? Then I'm storing the data to something like a global var a. Now this global var a, if you look at, we defined as a dot extern globe variable a4. What does it mean? This means I am referring to a memory referring to a label which name as a global variable a. Dot extern directive is kind of telling the assembler program, this EXP14 main.asm, that I'll be using some label which is not defined in this assembly file, but it is defined somewhere else as an global variable, and its size is 4 byte, a complete word. That's all it is telling. And then using that, it is storing the value into that global variable. Now the function print gva looks like this. In the C program, like main, it is a global variable a, okay, which is not an external variable for C program, top level program, but main ASM is kind of using that as an external variable. And then on the C side, you actually define something called external integer variable a, which defines, okay, there is somewhere there is a variable a which is like a global variable, I'm just using that, which is type of int, which is kind of equivalent to this external glob var 4. And I think they can be interchanged in the assembly program, but let's stick to this example. Okay, so what this print gva does is, okay, printing first of all control at print gva, global value is this, printf and then return, right? So how it is implemented is not important, like it's a print gva label and bunch of instruction with the end jr $ra. We'll talk about the function implementation in assembly language later in the, I think, 2 or 3 lecture down the line. We'll talk about that, but let's say this is my function implementation at the assembly level, and here I am doing a dot global print gva, so that this guy, when do a jl print gva is a label which is not defined here, but assembler will think, okay, maybe it is in the some other module, and linker will resolve this. Okay, linker will resolve this. So we can, for the code jumping purpose, we can use a label which is not defined anywhere, but if we want to access something global variable, we need to declare it as an external glob of variable a of 4. And then here in this case, we are defining message 1 strcr, message 2 different strings, and in this process, if you see, I'm loading what from global variable a, right? Now this global variable a is not defined in this ASM, right? This label is not defined. Then assembler will think, okay, maybe this is something which is defined somewhere else. So our understanding, this exp14 main.asm, here dot extern, which is correspond to a global variable integer var a, its the dot extern is kind of misleading, right, with respect to extern in the high level language. Okay, dot extern means that I am defining a label which is 4 byte long or memory storage and can be used as an from an external module. So dot global is more like your text labeling. Dot extern is more like a data labeling. Okay, and you just define that storage. You are not defining initializing the value or anything else. You just define the storage and storing what into that. On the usage of these PGVA, where we are actually doing the function call, there we are using this global variable a, which is extern at my main program, and linker will know that and they will link those address together and make it work. All right, and then we can look at how it works in the Mars. Okay, so let's go back to our Mars with our experiment. So to do this experiment, you need to first make sure assemble all files in the directory, initialize program counter to the main if defined. Okay, so this is your main program extern, so reserving a space in the global variable memory space. So this is how you're defining a global variable. This dot extern is a bit misleading if we are thinking about an extern keyword in the high level language. It is not that. It is basically saying assembler that this label globe var name globe var a, this can be any string, just I happen to give a name globe underscore var underscore a, stands for global variable a. You reserve a label globally that linker can refer to if it is being referred from any other module, and it's a 4 byte space. So then we store the value in the globe, whatever we type in the global variable a. Then inside the function print gva, we read from that global variable, which is also using, this is interesting, dot extern pgvar a. I believe we don't need to do it. Let's do that. Maybe I was doing some experiment and had this, and it refers to that. So let's try to assemble it. Okay, operation completed, and let's try to run it. Run, enter an integer. That's 18. Now see, it's saying enter control at print gva, global variable value is 18, control back to main, and my done. So that's the whole program, right? So we are entering an integer, then control goes to the print gva routine, which is defined in a separate module. Yeah, so we don't need this line basically. Okay, so one extern is fine. Let's see. Okay, and then we use it. So another, let's try to do introduce it back and let's see what happens. I think maybe I was doing that experiment. If I do an extern of the same variable name at 2 different places, what happens? Okay, this assembler is happy, and let's try 20. Yeah, so it doesn't have any effect basically. It's fine. You can multiple define it. It basically points to the same area. But what my point is, you don't need it. You don't need it. Assemble, clear, 15. Yeah, you don't need it basically. So you define one plus extern. This is my global for the whole program. Any module can refer to that variable, that level as a variable. Dot global main is the text level, text global that you can refer to at any point of time. extgv, here's dot global for print gva. That's what made the other module to use that print gva, otherwise it will give a problem. So this is the concept of the global variable in assembly language term. That's all for this lecture. If you have any question, please send me email or ask me in class.